Welcome back to the latest episode of Unscripted, a LeaseLock podcast. My guest today is Dave Marcinkowski, partner at both Quext Technologies and Madera Residential. And for those unfamiliar, Madera Residential is an investor in multifamily housing throughout Texas, and Quext is a provider of smart technology in the multifamily space. I point out both of his business interests because it uniquely positions him to answer a question I've had around smart technology and its adoption for some time now. I talk about the specifics in our conversation, but recent studies have shown that smart home tech is one of the most desired amenities from a renter perspective, and one that they say they're willing to pay for. But in our recent 2024 Multifamily Executive Survey we conducted here at LeaseLock, it was one of the least likely amenities to be focused on in 2025. This disconnect was what I wanted to dive into with Dave, since he has the perspective of both the property owner as well as the service provider. Now, we recorded this session at the Quext offices at the Star, the Dallas Cowboys practice facility in Frisco, Texas. And in full disclosure, after living in Dallas for over 20 years, you do become a Cowboys fan by osmosis, which is just a painful side effect of living in DFW. So before we dive in, just a reminder that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of LeaseLock. The content is intended for general informational purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice or endorsements. While we strive to ensure that the content is as accurate and up-to-date as possible, LeaseLock makes no representations or warranties of any kind, expressed or implied, regarding the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of the information discussed. The content is provided as is, and LeaseLock assumes no responsibility for any errors or omissions. Listeners should consult with qualified professionals before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast. This podcast may include references to third-party sources, which are provided for convenience and informational purposes only. LeaseLock does not endorse or take responsibility for the accuracy or reliability of any third-party content. In no event shall LeaseLock, its affiliates, or any of its employees, officers, or agents be liable for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, or consequential damages arising out of or in conjunction with the use or the reliance of the content of this podcast. Now, with that highly scripted disclaimer out of the way, let's get unscripted with Dave Marcinkowski.
Well, Dave, I appreciate you sitting down with me and talking all things smart home technology. We've had an opportunity to kind of sit down a little bit beforehand and have a conversation. Listeners obviously haven't had that same opportunity. So why don't you tell a little bit about your background in kind of the whole realm of smart home technology and multifamily, and why I kind of wanted to have this conversation with you.
Well, first, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Of course.
I think I need to start by saying I've been an apartment operator for 33 years. And so I bring kind of a different perspective to the technology side, because I was a user of this technology, or going to be a user of that technology. And we now own, my partners and I have a company called Madera Residential. We have about 12,000 units. Back in 2016, we founded the company Quext, which is a smart home provider. We have a smart thermostat that we've patented technology around. We do locks and lights and leak detection and all those fun things. We also do manage Wi-Fi and some other things. So I carry a kind of a unique background in that I'm an operator for as long as I've been an operator, and I'm a technology guy too, and I'm trying to marry those things together. How do you bring the right technology solution from the right perspective that truly solves the problems that we face today?
Well, and that's why I wanted to sit down and have the conversation with you around this, is because, and I'll give you the background with this, is, a couple of years ago when I was in another life working over at RealPage, we had commissioned a study with the Center for Generational Kinetics, and we had asked renters their perspective and thoughts on a number of different things, but one of them specifically was smart home technology. And it actually ranked relatively high of all the technologies that a resident was willing to actually pay for. The one that kind of blew me away of all the things was the doorbell cam was the number one thing they were willing to pay for, which I was like, really? In an apartment community? But we recently, and as we're recording this, we haven't released the results of the survey that LeaseLock did at the end of 2024 for about 50 different C-level executives across the United States in multifamily, both ownership and operations. And one of the lower technologies that they were considering implementing was smart home technology, which that's why, as an operator, as an owner, as someone in the vendor space, in the space, I was wanting to have a conversation of, I don't think I've ever seen a disconnect that far between what a resident would pay and someone's willing to put in. So you're in this field all the time. What's your take when you hear that?
I think it's a number of things. I would start by saying, for a long time, we dealt with a lot of first generational technology, hub-based, Wi-Fi enabled. Wi-Fi goes out, things don't work, built from single family solutions. So we're taking Nest thermostats, which were built for single family, and we're trying to plug them into a multi-world. I get it. There was a race to, you read these studies, you're like, oh, we just got to go build a smart apartment solution. So let's see what's available. Let's cobble it all together. Let's put a cool wraparound and call it a multifamily gig and throw it out there. And so I think first movers kind of got a bad taste around that, operators.
Sure.
Residents still wanted it. Residents still, especially if it came from a single family, we like the Ring doorbells and we like to be able to control our thermostats from our phone and to turn lights on from our phone. And so you still have a lot of people who are still seeing the value in it, but the technology wasn't mature enough to really provide the answers and the solutions that we need. Like I think you're starting to see today with technology that is seamless, truly built for multifamily, takes into account the fact that people are moving in and moving out. You've got vacancy, you've got vendors who are having to deal with what's going in there. And you really start to be able to create those operational efficiencies beyond just the potential revenue stream from residents. The other thing that I think is really important as we look at this is the cost. It's a large capital expenditure to be able to do something like this. And typically when you do this is when you buy or sell an apartment. It's a part of the value add that you're going to do.
Right.
We haven't had a lot of transactions the last couple of years. At least not.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah. And so you don't see the adoption level. So you haven't really had that scale tip where you get FOMO, where all of a sudden the operators are like, okay, wait a minute. There is something out there that's working really well. And people are starting to use it. They're starting to get that good vibe around it. I'm starting to see the operational efficiencies, whether that's not as many leaks, I'm saving money on water, my electricity bill's going down, I'm not having vacant electric and doing all those things. And so I'm optimistic that once interest rates come down, cap rates come down, we see that next sales cycle where we're buying properties, more adoption, and then you'll start to get more people excited about it. But coming up with $200,000 on a 200 unit deal to be able to go put even just the minimum of like locks on a property or locks and thermostats, that's a tough pill to swallow, especially in this environment where cash is king for us. I mean, real estate guys aren't sitting on a ton of cash right now.
Well, and you said, I'm going to tap back into your operator, mentality. So when I was first approached with this idea and having this conversation, one of the things that my mind went to was the real push towards, some people call it specialization, some people call it centralization. I'm a specialization guy. I started to think about the opportunities that smart home technology would be able to deliver from that centralization and operations perspective. Yes, you can think self-guided tours, all those types of things. You've got to have a way to have someone actually get in the apartment. That's going to be smart technology at this point. I don't know anybody who's hanging, locks on doorknobs anymore at this point. But what are some of the ways that, and I'm putting you on the spot with this question, but what are some of the ways that operators could actually be gaining more efficiencies if they were to implement a platform like this? And we'll go back into Wi-Fi and some other questions I've got. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's the easy ones like leak detection. If you can limit your leaks on a property, if you can catch them soon enough, not only are you going to save massive operational costs, but you're gonna hopefully keep your insurance premiums down because you're not going to have those types of events. Vacant electric, we spend if you have, let's say you have an on-site team that isn't on their game, you could end up spending $2,000-$3,000 in vacant electric because vendor goes in, turns the AC on in Texas in 100-degree heat, leaves, nobody came in behind them, electricity just keeps running, going on and on. But I'll take it a step further, like access control. So smart locks are more than just a cool thing that our residents want. Like think about it from a standpoint of it's a vacant unit. And in today's environment, you got to go into the office, you got to get a key assigned to you, maybe going through some sort of key system. You got to go to that unit, you got to access it, you got to get in there, you do your work, then you got to return the key. If you could just send your vendor like a calendar and just say, hey, listen, when are you coming in? I'll authorize you to have access to that unit. I'll send you credentials via text. You can get into that unit. And like 10 minutes before I go into that unit, the AC goes to a set temperature that I set as the operator. It doesn't go to 60. Maybe it goes to 70. So the vendor can't go in there and mess with it. It's got a governor on it. So I can keep that electric piece down. And then as soon as you leave, because we have a motion detector inside the unit, we know that and the door's shut. Then the thermostat goes back down and the access is gone, and boom, I don't have to worry about having an office being open. If they want to come in the evening and I allow that to happen, they could do that. Better yet, let's say it's a resident has an issue in the middle of the night and we have to do an on-call type of a situation where they get a phone call. Now I have to go in, I have to drive in, I have to go get a key, I have to go to the unit. Now I can drive straight to that unit. My vision of the world, or my view of the world, is I think a lot of those types of things going to be gig economy.
I'm so glad you went there. This is literally where I was going to go in my head.
Yeah, the Uber of maintenance. It's like in the middle of the night, you're going to have some guy on site, and he's just going to be sitting there, and he's going to text on his phone saying, hey, we're going to pay X amount of dollars, go fix the toilet in unit number 202. Here's access to that unit. We've credentialed you and everything else like that. And boom, I don't even need a staff person to do that anymore.
It's so funny. That was literally what I was going to ask you about, because I think that is an area of our business that is drastically underutilized at this point. We've got residents on site that have all kinds of experience and all kinds of different skill sets that we could potentially be using. And I love the idea of the Angie's List essentially for multifamily, that, okay, great, I have a plumbing leak in a vacant apartment that's affecting an apartment down below it. Sure, if he's got it on, great, he can accept the call. Or it might be the guy across the street who's got it on there. I'm waiting for someone to develop and bring that app to market, because I'll be really, really curious to see how it's taken. So I'm so glad you went down there.
No, absolutely. No, yeah, I think you can start to do different things. Package delivery. You can start working with third-party groups like dog walkers and things like that if you have the ability to give them access remotely. I think we envision having maybe the door has a package hatch in it that, you have a camera on the door and you can sit there and see the vendor come with the package. They open up the hatch, it slides right into the deal, and then they shut it. They can't get access to the unit. I mean, there's endless amounts of possibilities, but you got to have the technology to do it. And, I think we're finally starting to see the technology get to a stage and mature enough where those types of things aren't pipe dreams. Those can be realities.
So when you say you got to get the technology to that level, it seems to me, and maybe I'm, naive on this, it seems to me that the physical technology of this is probably already there. It's more, and again, please correct me if I'm off on this. To me, it seems like it's more would be what I'm going to call corporate monitoring, and being able to collect the data and analyze the data, and then be able to troubleshoot things you're seeing from a repetitive basis. Or you mentioned insurance. I'm really curious to find out if we've got groups that are leveraging this data to help, offset underwriting or providing it to underwriters in that level. Am I off on that, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both. Let's talk about the technology first. That's kind of an easier one. Most lock providers don't have Bluetooth-enabled locks. So why is Bluetooth-enabled lock so important, especially for multifamily? Well, you have Bluetooth on your phone. You don't have Zigbee, Z-Wave, and these other things. So if I have Bluetooth on my phone and I have credentialing to the lock, I can go and access the phone, and boom, it just opens without me having to open up an app, press a button, boom, it opens.
Regardless of if it's on or not, if power's out.
We're now getting to where Google Wallet, you're now seeing right now, actually, us and our competitors are launching Google Wallet, Apple Wallet, where I just have to have my wallet open and boom, my lock opens as I approach the door. So those are kind of technologies I think are really critical for us, especially from a security standpoint. That's a much more secure solution than existed. So the technology is now getting there, which makes more sense in a multifamily side. Take the data side though.
Yeah.
I'm a believer that the most valuable thing an apartment operator has, especially at scale, is their data. It's more valuable than even the real estate that they have. They just don't know it yet. We have to be able to capture that data because we know where people live. Think of all the information that we have about them. We know when they leave. We know, we know what they like to bring into their apartment. We can track a lot of different things that we can add to, what they're paying for their rent and all these other things. I believe the future is the data. I think data will be on all of our operators, all of our balance sheets. There'll be some sort of data play. We'll be getting paid something for access to our data, but we need it. We need to be able to capture all this data. A great example of, the group that is saying we absolutely have to have smart apartment technology is the student market. The younger generations, this isn't it would be great if you did. It's an expectation. If you don't have it, they're going to walk and go to a different place. I'm going to argue on the backside is the senior level group, the people who get into a senior facility. Right now, those groups are hiring people to call everybody every morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, make sure, hey, are you there? Everything okay? Or they're going and they're knocking on the door. If we can put a motion sensor, we're not watching you, but if we're putting motion sensors inside of a unit, we know if you fell. We know if you haven't gotten out of bed yet. And now all of a sudden we can send that data if it hasn't happened by a particular time, now somebody's going to a specific unit in concern for that particular resident versus having to go to every unit inside of that. That's a use case that I don't think people are starting to realize. Like, we can get into those kinds of things. So let's say, even in a multifamily shop, let's say I'm worried about my mom.
Yep.
And she's living in this apartment. She can live on her own, but she's at an age where I'm worried that something could happen to her. I may be able to put some sort of premium on that unit because it's got those sensors in it that only notify me, her son, that something could be going on, but I can at least get up every day and go, okay, mom's moving, everything's good. I don't have to worry if she's okay. I can sit there, maybe even track other things like, did she have the groceries that I ordered for her delivered to her? Did they get put inside the unit? Because I have access to something that is a premium service for that unit that I need because it's my mom, that I can't afford to go put her into a nice senior facility, but I can put her into a good apartment, but I can add these layered services in to make their time there that much better, safer.
You got my mind spinning now at this point, Dave, because the demographics that you just described, student and senior, I literally just got my kids out of student housing and my mom is in senior housing right now. And not to tell too much of my mom, but I'm going to, because she would on me. I know she's okay every day because she sends a text every day.
Yeah.
Like that's every day since the beginning of COVID, she's been sending text to all these different people. But I can tell you, but if it's 11 o'clock and I haven't gotten the text, I am like, okay, what action do I need to take? What's going on? I then go to, like in my house, I got Ecobee sensors in mine. Yeah. I've got the motion detectors and it'll close the vents and turn off the light, all the things. It would be so much easier if I could actually just open up the Ecobee app and look at, say, mom's apartment. Yep, that one actually, we've seen motion today. That's a brilliant idea.
So take it a step further, even go nuttier, like air quality inside of a unit. So I have peers of mine that are putting devices inside of a unit that they can track the air quality inside of a unit. They also have devices that can sterilize that air. Would you pay as a premium to have, clean air inside of your unit to a medical grade quality? So you've got bad allergies or something.
That was my dad before he passed. Yeah.
We can do, the future is we're going to be able to do things in set units, maybe eventually all units, that we can have these premium services if you're willing to pay for it, because you need something like that in any apartment community. There's technology out there that I know I haven't personally experienced, but I've talked to people that I trust who've seen it, that they can track whether or not there's COVID in the air, flu in the air. They can start to track, what is the air, is there cat dander inside of that unit? And those kinds of things. I mean, I'm not a germaphobe, but I have lots of friends who are borderline germaphobes. Uh-huh. They want to know that they feel good about where they're living. Like there's some level there. Would I pay more, whatever that is, $10 a month or whatever, to have an app that I can sit there and go, I'm green today. All my air quality is fantastic. I feel great right now because of it.
I don't want that exposure. I don't need the rest of people in my life actually going, no, we're 2%. We need to get down to 0. No, I just really don't want to get to that level. Again, personal trauma. So you actually walked down a couple paths that I wasn't expecting us to go down to, but I really do appreciate it because you're opening kind of the eyes as to what's possible. Let's back it up a little bit and talk about what are some of the major things that people are missing just in the operations that could be today. Like we talked about leak detection earlier before we jumped on air. And it's funny because you're describing it, and I'm happy to describe it. I went back to, I'm a big reef guy. Like my degree is actually aquatic biology with an emphasis in ecology and evolution. I don't use it all anymore, but I've got a kick-ass fish tank at home. And I've got flow detection on that tank. And I could pull out the app right now and I could tell you what the pH, the salinity, the temperature, the water flow, everything is in that tank right now. And it helps me find trends and all the things from that ecosystem. What are some of the areas that you see this in as well? We can start with leak detection because you described the whole way leak detection can be found. I always thought it was the hockey puck that went down and something drips on it, therefore you have a leak. Yeah. It's way past that now, though.
Yeah, I mean, the hockey puck thing was a great first generational tool. If you have a faucet that's leaking or a pipe that's leaking underneath the sink, that's a common for especially older assets for that to happen. Yeah. Put the hockey puck on there, boom, water hits it, and then I know there's a leak and I can come in and I can fix it. Sadly, that doesn't happen nearly as much as a runny toilet. 60% of your water loss in a multifamily use comes from a running toilet. Yeah, we don't have a lot of devices on the toilet. So what if I stick, a bobber inside the bowl and I can track whether there's water moving consistently beyond just a flush to know, okay, that toilet's, and I get some sort of a notification there. Or I stick a device on the supply line where I can maybe even shut the supply line off. So as an apartment operator, boom, it's leaking, resident hasn't called it in, it's happening at a level that I don't feel good about. I can actually like remotely shut it off until I can get there and fix the problem. So if 60% of my water is there, now I just go stick out, let's say it's a garden style deal. I go put flow meters on all of my internal to the building. So now I'm tracking water into my building, right, and I know my toilets are, good or bad. And if it's 2:00 in the morning and I've got water moving at some level, I know there's something not right inside that property and all my toilets are good, I got to get somebody over there as soon as I can because I got a leak somewhere and I got to find it inside that building. So instead of this like blanket, I'm sticking hockey pucks under, 16 sinks and I'm doing all these different things. I focus on my real problem, which is my toilets, and I add the level of water moving throughout the unit, throughout the building, and I can track the majority of my issues. And then I have a plan for when something else happens, identify it as quick as possible so I can get out there and fix it. You mentioned insurance earlier. We're working on, and I know my peers are as well. Like this is a huge play. Insurance is one of our largest expenses that we deal with, and it's going up and up. We have to find ways to mitigate that. One big leak can be catastrophic, tens of thousands of dollars. Not to mention you're going to have to move people out, and you're going to have vacant units that you can come on. We got to be able to catch those as quickly as possible. So if you can have these types of solutions, and we can produce enough data, we don't have enough data today to have a meaningful impact, but there are carriers out there who are giving discounts to groups that put these devices on there. And the more data we can get, there'll be a time where we're going to be able to sit there and identify, like, this is no longer the risk we thought it was, so our premiums will come down accordingly. If you're putting in motion sensors inside, I'm trying to think of like, if you've got a great light package, if you're able to track, I know all my exterior lights are working because I have devices that I've got sensors on that I can know if one of them burns out, I can get out there and fix it quickly, and I can identify maybe security issues. These are the things that you cobble these things together into a program. Carriers are going to lean into those once the data is available and bring our premiums down.
Well, and that's interesting because, it's one thing to know, it's another thing to do. So what that would also help drive is, okay, the sensor picked up that the light that was overlooking the entrance from the parking lot went out at 11:58 p.m. on Tuesday. And a new bulb was put in there at 9:59 the next day on Wednesday. That's above and beyond just a work order of going in and out. That's proof positive that an operator is actually really following up, really taking care of the issues. It can also cut the other direction. Like, if that went out on Tuesday and we see that that bulb isn't replaced in a high traffic, high security area, and that wasn't replaced for a week and a half, 2 weeks, I don't know that I want that data going to my underwriter, but
Well, I think what you'll end up having is some company will come out there with lights as a service, and they're going to collect all that data, and it's going to be their job, and we'll have to pay them to replace those bulbs, but there'll be some sort of guarantee around that. We just create a whole new business line because we now have the data for when those types of things are happening. I mean, you think about camera technology and what's going on with camera technology today. It's not just license plate readers. I mean, we're getting to a point where we can identify real issues as they're happening and be able to do something about those. Again, like, this is the type of technology that it's going to take, and it's available right now, that as multifamily folks, and this, we do not adapt quickly to technology. We are let's stick our toe in the water, and then we'll stick our calf in the water, and we'll kind of get there until somebody big does it, or somebody does something that gets national exposure, and then we're the worst at FOMO. Once we think that we're missing out, we all jump into, we got to get in there, we got to throw money at it, we got to get it, kind of the thing. And so it just takes one of those two things, and people are going to get excited about it. I think it'll be the next buying spree of apartments where you're going to see that shift happen with smart apartment stuff, where you're going to see it's going to turn into FOMO and everybody's going to want it.
Well, and it's interesting because as we've been talking, I'll readily admit I'm guilty of this. And, I was thinking, okay, well, the smart home technology, I was truly thinking mostly about what the stuff is in my house. And I've got a relatively smart home. I mean, built within the last 2.5 years. I've got all the switches, all the lights. I mean, my house literally goes from, I shouldn't even admit this, but I'm going to, at 7:30 in the evening, my house switches in the living room from all white lights to all red lights so that, we can get to sleep easier and everything else. If I can automate it, it's automated. Mm-hmm. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to have to think about it. But I hadn't thought about the fact of like, well, yeah, my security cameras are actually hooked up to it as well, and that's part of the smart home technology package. And for a multifamily operator, again, just knowing and having the knowledge as to what's going on your assets, I saw this the question. Do you find that folks are actually worried about the risk of having that knowledge of being able to there, or is it something?
Yeah, I mean, we have all of our excuses for why we don't want to do it. I think what it comes down to is we're afraid of new technology in a lot of ways, and I think we've had bad experiences. We said things were going to work a certain way when they got on there. They didn't work quite that way, or we had to develop to them. And in our industry, we're kind of notorious for product service folks to bring out solutions a little too soon. And, we have a bad experience. And so instead of like working with that vendor, we kind of pull back and we don't do it. And then it takes us a while to earn that trust back to where we kind of get in. I think we're kind of in that kind of a mold. But you mentioned something at the very beginning of this. You called it specialization.
Yeah.
Centralization. That's coming. And
yeah.
That is coming super fast. So what does that look like? I mean, can we really envision a personless office? I'd say, yeah. I think I think it's there right now. I mean, from a leasing perspective, I mean, self-tours and whatnot, but even just the whole leasing experience, we're getting to a point where, I can sit there, I can identify my apartment from my kitchen table, I can select the unit, I can apply for the unit, I get approved for the unit, I can execute the lease, I can onboard my utilities, I can set up a mover, I can do all that stuff, I get access to the unit. I don't have to talk to anybody. Think about that from a standpoint of fair housing. I no longer have to worry about, was there any fair housing complaints here? Well, you're not talking to anybody. It's all technology that's driving you through that. So I take that whole burden off of us. Then the person moves into the unit. And I think we're looking at a world of concierge, more in-office stuff where it's going to be more about building community inside of an office. You're going to have people there to do that, not to do the other things.
Yeah.
But we mentioned like the gig economy. You're going to have gig leasing agents. You're going to have gig maintenance. You're going to have gig whatever. I think those are going to be awesome jobs for whoever's, they get to work when they want to work. They probably, if they live in a community with lots of apartments, they could very well end up being busy as much as they want to be busy. But you're going to get to a point where we're not going to see a lot of bodies at a leasing property.
It's interesting. First off, I completely agree with you. I have to go back and look at it. I wrote an article about 3 years ago, maybe it's even 4 at this point, that literally asked the question, why are we calling it a leasing office instead of a resident services office? Like, why leasing happens once, they live with you for years, hopefully. And I agree with you. I think it's been interesting, the trend towards specialization from an operational model perspective is one thing, but I know of developers now that are literally building product with exactly what you said in mind. We want to have a essentially staffless office. So the model is literally built into the clubhouse. So that door, so you can 24-hour access. Great. If you want to do a self-guided tour at 1 o'clock in the morning, awesome. We're going to give you the code that gets you through the clubhouse door and get you through the door to the lease, the apartment. Everything's going to be on for you during that time because we can set all the lights and everything around it. And then we nurture that through different automations, et cetera, and be able to get to it. The one thing I think that is the danger point in that approach, and it's the 20-year operator coming out and me at this point. They're called communities for a reason. Like, it still has to be able to build that community feel that you are a part of something bigger than living in that box. And the fully automated, fully touchless leasing experience, the Amazonification of it, I do question, like, what's that sweet spot?
You're going to have to overcome it on the back end with, I think we've moved real estate into not being shelter, but lifestyle. We'll focus on the lifestyle. You're moving into a community that provides you a particular kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
So it may be, the services that you're offering, the way that you can connect people within that community, that's going to take people. Like, I don't think you're going to have a completely personless office. If it's a Madera property, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see those people who are out there, concierge, event coordinator type people who are drawing people together, because that's what people are looking for.
Right.
But man, the technology, even in that space, is pretty amazing. I mean, you can sit there and start to connect local restaurants, local stores, and opportunities through that. Inside of the community, we turn into the hub for that person. I need my dry cleaning picked up. I need my dog walked. I need my groceries delivered. I need all that. That's what those people are going to be doing more of and providing a better lifestyle for them. I like to I geek out on this stuff. So then you start getting into financial services. How do you help people level up financially? How do you help them save money? How do you help them, earn things by doing, their data is valuable too. So how do you as a multi get in a situation where you can pay those residents for or earn rewards not only for the resident, but maybe for the property owner as a new revenue stream, because you've connected your community with all these outside groups that are out there that are looking to get inside of where we're at.
It's one of the things, and you mentioned the data is the most important thing there, and there's such value to the data. And you mentioned, like, we know where people are, we provide their homes. It's interesting when you really start to get into the weeds on this element of it. We not only know where they are, their homes, we know their life cycle.
We know everything.
Like, yeah, I mean, and this sounds very big brotherish as we're saying this, but it is the ability to, I think there's a real opportunity in the ability to connect current residents with various different services in the community relative to their residency with you at that point. There are just certain things that someone needs when they first move in. There are certain things that they need when they're about to move out, that there's a real opportunity to connect, and it takes technologies, maybe not just all smart home technologies, but take some technologies to really understand.
You got to be able to capture that data. And this is scary. I mean, especially in today's age where everybody's like, Big Brother's looking at me. And so we're going to have to get really good and accept the fact that it's not our data, it's our residents' data. We have to protect that. We're going to become amazing data stewards. Other industries are doing that right now. I mean, if you don't think they're tracking you when you come into a hotel, if you don't think they're tracking you, they're tracking everybody else is doing this. As an industry, I think we're more apt to like read the really negative articles and go, I ain't going there. Like, we're going there whether you like it or not. So we as an industry, I think that's what's important with the apartment associations, with NMHC. We need those governing bodies to pull us together to kind of start to set those guidelines. We need the bigger companies to be setting the example for us. But I think as an industry, if we're not leaning into data, if we're not leaning into artificial intelligence, we haven't even tapped into artificial intelligence. No. You need data to do artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
If we're not tapping AI, I think we're out of business by the end of this decade.
Well, it's interesting. The one I mentioned at the beginning, we did the survey where people are planning on investing in their companies and their operations. And not surprisingly, AI was the number one thing that was on the list. But the survey, we specifically broke them apart, was AI, which is data optimization, versus AI, which is chatbot. And there's actually more people planning on investing in the AI automation and optimization than the chatbots. Because, the leasing gets all the hype. And I say this about centralization too. Leasing gets all the hype. The real money is in specializing the back office. In my mind, AI, same way. Leasing gets all the hype. The real money in the AI is all these other optimizations and all these other things that we've never had the time or the brain power or the dedication to really figure out, that AI can figure out what the best path forward is too.
The good news is we have some amazing people in our industry that are leaning into this right now. We have the Elon Musks we need for multifamily. They're just kind of getting into it, and we need to step back and watch them. We just can't be afraid of them when they come knocking on our door saying, we can do this, this, and this. Moore's Law, technology doubles every 2 years. I think it's going a lot faster with AI. I mean, what was it? November of 22 is when OpenAI came along. I mean, we're basically 2 years into this little journey of ours, and we're now on ChatGPT 5 and to the level that it can do it. Well, guess what? In 6 months, it's going to be double what it is now. And in 6 months after that, it's going to be double where that is. So if you're sitting here at home and you're watching this podcast and you're thinking like, I'm just going to wait and see how this whole thing plays out, you're already behind. Flip side, you don't have to go to the extreme and go good money at whatever looks good on paper. But you have to be interested. You have to spend the time. You have to have somebody on your team who's getting to understand it, who can like look at it from a visionary standpoint and say, okay, we're shooting a bullseye over here. How do we get there? And take the necessary steps to start moving you in that direction, because it doesn't take as much as you think for that to have an impact, a significant impact on you, your operations, and the performance of your property.
So let me ask you this, and we'll kind of probably close out with this, because I think it's a good way to kind of talk towards the end. And I'll steal a line from Donald Davidoff over at Reba. He talks about needing to have purple people. And I fully agree with him on this. You need people, if multifamily hardcores are red and the data scientists and the BI people are blue, you need the purple people. You need the people who can speak both those, or at least you need to have the group together that's purple. It sounds like people need to be thinking about this the same way. from a smart home technologies, it's not just, hey, can we do it from a smart home technology perspective? It's what's going to enhance the overall performance and the resident experience. And that takes both types from here, right?
Here's how I would say it. Every apartment deal, I think you would agree, is a fingerprint. There are no two apartments you could build two apartments in two different markets and they're exactly the same. There's going to be differences between those apartments. The purple people are the people who can walk into a specific asset and identify what's best for that asset. Sometimes, you walk into an asset and you go, okay, where are you at in the life cycle? Are you going to sell this deal in a couple of years? Are you going to keep it? Like, what are your needs and how is that going to work? And sit there and go, where are your losses at? Do you have a lot of vacant recovery, a lot of vacant electric? And start to ask those questions, identify the needs, and then put together like a 1.0 version of a smart technology solution. And then if you need more, great, you do more, but there'll be an explanation behind that. Where I think the problem is I think in our industry, we spend too much time thinking that there's one size fits all, and we got to go from here to here right away. You don't. You can take steps, but you got to start moving in that direction. Yeah. And there's low-hanging fruit you can go get, less cost, less experience. But I can tell you, once you get a taste of it, you're going to want more, and then it's just a progression to where you go.
Well, and then it's, again, if everything's important, nothing is one of my favorite sentences. But, if you've got a strategic goal as an organization to achieve Y, you probably want to be asking the question, okay, what are the different technologies that can help us achieve Y? Yeah. And start there on that. So one last question, because I want to end on this one. Not that you haven't geeked out on this already, but I'm gonna let you really geek out.
Okay.
What are you most excited about in this space, call it over the next 3 years? Where do you think is going to have the biggest impact over the next 3 years?
Well, it's going to start with, we're going to see multi-gig speed come into multifamily units. And we're going to get to a point where the technology is going to support where we're going to have lightning fast speed, which I think we need to, as apartment operators, accept the fact that internet's the fourth utility. Once you can get to that point in time, you don't need to necessarily have that for the smart apartment side, but I group manage Wi-Fi, bulk Wi-Fi into the smart apartment side of things. As it relates to everything I've told you today, I think is either here now or going to be here in the next 24 months.
That's why I made you stretch out to 36.
Yeah. I mean, it is like we are on the cusp of some major breakthroughs, and there's some incredible groups that are out there doing, and what's great is there are multiple groups doing some incredible things, so they're challenging each other to take it to the next level. What I think you're going to see is a seamless apartment lifestyle experience where it's all built into one app to rule them all. It's all in there. Your wallet you're not going to have to worry about fobs or anything. Your phone is going to be your key to everything. And you're going to be able to control everything to the point where it's so smart and knows you so well. Like you're going to walk out of your apartment and go to work, and your system's going to pop up and go, hey, we see you're leaving. We're not expecting you back until 5. You want me to go ahead and turn the lights off, set the temperature to XYZ. It's going to track that information, give you data. I saved you $11 today kind of thing based off of those things. And then in the background, it's going to know us so well, it's going to sit there and start popping up in the middle of the day like, do you want me to go ahead and order you food for you to be home at this point in time? I saw on your calendar that you got a kid's soccer game. You're probably not going to be home until later. You probably haven't thought about dinner. I'll make sure we have something gets ordered right before you come. Which would you rather have? I noticed these are the last 5 places you went to. Which one do you want to order from? And I'll make sure the food is there right when you get home. I noticed that we haven't gone to the dry cleaner in a couple of weeks. You want me to set you a reminder? It's going to be that smart. It's going to start directing you and making your life better so we can use our time more effectively.
That's a vision and a half right there, Dave, and I appreciate you sharing with it. I know that lots of ways to get a hold of you. How can people get a hold of you if they want to know more about what about the technology in general, or what you're doing at Quext or Madera?
Yeah, easy email, dave@onequext.com or dave@maderaresidential.com. I'm a big LinkedIn guy. I don't really do any other social media, but you can always catch me on LinkedIn. Man, I appreciate the time. We need to get this story out. It's such an important story. Whether you use my solution or use some other solution, as a multifamily operator, I'm telling you, this isn't like we're going to wake up and you're going to find yourself behind. You don't have to go and kill it dead right off the bat, but you got to be at least watching videos like this, asking questions, paying attention, because it's here now and it's coming very fast.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing it with us. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Unscripted, a LeaseLock podcast. If you have found the information in this episode, or any other for that matter, beneficial in any way, the best way to support the work we do is to like and subscribe to the channel. That way, you'll be sure to never miss a new episode when they drop. Also, sharing your takeaways in the comments or on the social media platform of your choosing, mine happens to be LinkedIn, is also a great way to help us get the message out. Additionally, if you'd like to suggest a guest or perhaps be a guest on Unscripted, please head over to leaselock.com/unscripted, where at the bottom of the page you'll find a guest submission form. We would love to help you tell your story. Until next time, make it a great day.